You know, a guy, we talked about spring game heroes before and guys that have made a name in that game. And then some of them go on to do good things. We're now getting to like spring practice hero potential. All right, lots to get to today. But we are joined now by someone who's been, checking in on OSU practice, to say the least. Austin Ward joins us now on the fan guest hotline. Good morning, Austin. This is what I took away from over the weekend. Jeremiah Smith, still good. Can confirm?
Yeah, I can confirm that is true. Now, I think some of the hullabaloo, at least based on the social media videos of the last play of Student Appreciation Day, are somewhat misleading in terms of his continued dominance, because I have to let you guys know that he stepped out of bounds, and that would not have been. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Tyvis. I haven't been paying attention to everything you said this morning, but
no, I didn't say it this morning. I actually commented on the Instagram post, and I was like, as much as I love JJ, I am Team Silver Bullets and I'm Team BIA. This would have been a loss of down, illegal touching, and go good guy, go bad guys.
Yeah. I was standing down there in that corner of the end zone, Tyvis. So I certainly took notice of that. I don't want to ruin anybody's good time. I also don't think that it changes the fact that Jeremiah is the best player in college football. But I did think, and I had your back, Tyvis, and BIA's back. I told, Mark Pantoni was sitting right there. I told Mick afterwards that I think the defense having to run sprints for that fourth and goal rep is a little bit unfair, because the official just decided to keep the flag in his pocket so that everyone could celebrate Jeremiah. So I did have your back, Tyvis.
That's you know what? That's messed up, Austin. That we still running sprints. First of all, it would have been the judge should have threw his hat down and let everybody know that he stepped out, and then it should have been a flag. But it is what it is.
They're in preseason form too. Come on, this is their practice as well.
No, I understand that they be wanting the offense to win, especially when the students is around and all of those things. So I get it. I know it ain't changed. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, but. He's still really good. He doesn't have to take every rep in a practice like Saturday as well, T-Bone. But, there were some 7-on-7 moments with Julian Sayin and Jeremiah hooking up before that looked really special and really exciting for Ohio State. I'm obviously not trying to take anything away from Jeremiah, not that I could, but just the social media buzz on that particular play, we're gonna have to cool the jets on that one just a bit.
Is there anybody out of the newcomers, the guys that came from the portal, not the freshmen, but the portal guys, who has impressed you the most?
Yeah, these guys have, really all made an impression in a hurry, Tyvis, and I think that's validating why Ohio State targeted these specific players with positional versatility, with veteran experience, with the knowledge of what it takes to succeed coming from big programs. I think when you're looking at the secondary, Earl Little Jr., he got that black stripe off in a hurry, and you can see him moving around and really playing, I think, any of those safety spots for Matt Patricia, Matt Guerreri, and Tim Walton. I think there's a lot of excitement going on right there. Saturday there were opportunities for both Kyle Parker and Devin McEwen to make some plays. I think that you're seeing kind of a renaissance for Ryan Day's passing attack, to go back to doing some of the underneath drag routes, mesh concepts. Because he and Cortez Hankton and Keenan Bailey and Arthur Smith were looking at what might be needed at that position to get the wide receiver group, more explosive, not just vertically down the field, but horizontally. And I think the speed of those two guys definitely stands out. I really thought going into camp that, James Smith had built a reputation as this no-nonsense, all-serious guy, very dedicated to the craft. He and Quay Rousseau have both been two of the last players to leave the practice field every time that we've been in there in spring camp. So clearly they understand the work ethic. They come from Alabama, so that should probably come as no surprise either. They fit exactly what I was describing there and what Ohio State was looking for. So, we could probably basically go through every position and name some of those guys, but at the top, I think those guys at the defensive backfield, throwing Dominic Kelly in there as well, and at wide receiver, they're going to be in prominent roles, and I think you're going to see them make a pretty big impact come September.
Austin Ward joining us on The Fan this morning, talking Buckeye football. Obviously, the spring game a few weeks away, but You know, a guy we talked about spring game heroes before and guys that have made a name in that game, and then some of them go on to do good things, and sometimes it's just, well, they had a good spring game and that's kind of what they ended up doing. We're now getting to like spring practice hero potential, and I want to ask about a guy in Brock Boyd who is a freshman, to my knowledge still the only freshman who's had the black stripe removed off his helmet, which is saying something given how many talented freshmen there are. How much of it is spring game hero type of stuff, and how much of this do you think translates to the actual season?
I'm interested to find out the answer to that, T-Bone, because I do think that there are a lot of elements that work in his favor that could allow him to get out there quicker, because part of it is an overall philosophy shift with what I was talking about with Cal Parker and Devin McEwen and maybe different routes and concepts that are coming back. And I think potentially a return to a rotation that actually, may play 5 or 6 wide receivers. I understand the temptation, the desire to not take Jeremiah Carnell off the field the last couple of years. I think in some ways, and this sounds crazy to say out loud, but it limited some of what the diversity of the Ohio State passing attack and offense could do. I mean, you can trust them to go win routes every single time, but what really I think made Ohio State so difficult to defend in the early days of the Ryan Day era when you had some interchangeable, really fast, really athletic pieces, and using all of them. When I'm thinking about Paris Campbell and KJ Hill and Austin Mack and Terry McLaurin and Johnny Dixon, these guys could play any of the wide receiver spots, and they could also run away from defenders across the middle of the field. And for whatever reason, we've seen less of that. It could be the way that teams are defending Ryan Day. His offense could be, an offensive personnel situation. But all of that is to say that Brock Boyd has the skills, he has the speed, he has the route running ability that could allow for an easier acclimation to go straight into that lineup. Now, I'm not talking about him being a starter, but I do think that a lot of this hype is deserved, and I'll be one of the first people to admit I wouldn't have thought that Brock Boyd was going to get his black stripe removed before Jaquaden Guilford or Chris Henry Jr., but that stuff doesn't happen by accident either. So I think everything is trending in the right direction. What does that mean by September 12th in Austin, Texas? I really don't know, but I think it would be hard to imagine as we sit here right now that Brock Boyd is not in that top 6 group for sure.
When you look at this offensive line, I know obviously that was one of the touchy things that fans had after the last 2 games of the season. Do you think they've solidified who the starting 5 is? I know there's Austin Saraville that has been rotating a little bit. What do you think their best 5 look like? Yeah,
I think the best 5 is probably going to include Austin Saraville at right guard and Ian Moore at left tackle. Philip Daniels still there at right tackle. I don't think there's any motivation from the coaching staff or even from teammates who they were raving about Philip Daniels and the way he was using his hands this spring. I talked to some defensive linemen about that last week, but the problem is right now, Tyvis, in terms of solidifying that, Austin Saraville and Philip Daniels, neither one were available to practice on Saturday. I think they had some minor procedures done that I don't know if either of them will. I don't believe that Philip Daniels will participate for the rest of camp, and I'm not certain about what that means for Austin Saraville. But then beyond that, you had Jake Cook go down. He's a top 8, top 9 offensive lineman at the start of practice on Saturday. Don't know what his status will be for the rest of camp. Josh Padilla has been out for all of spring camp. He's someone that would, be factoring into that conversation of whether you're putting Ian Moore or Josh Padilla in. If Saraville is at tackle or if he's at guard, those are the key dominoes that are at play right there. But the difficult part is coming out of Saturday, we didn't really get to see that, and more importantly, Ohio State's coaches didn't. And so when you're now banged up heading into the last 2 weeks of camp, at a position where there's been, some hand-wringing and uncertainty, it's not a fun spot to be in. Now, they're all going to be fully healthy by August, but there's also a possibility that when they get into the horseshoe in, 12 days, that it's not going to look like a finished product, and we'll probably then be spending all of summer still breaking that down.
I just have one crew question for you, Austin, and that is how big was the Wessam Abu Ali big night that he had in Atlanta? That goal he had, that second goal.
We we needed to see some progress for the Crew. So I think that's an understatement for me and you, Bone. It's been a rough, kind of inconsistent, lack of productivity start to the season for the Crew. Maybe that's a groundhog peeking its head out with a moment of brilliance, and we get to see this thing heading back in the right direction. And maybe they can share some of that with the Blue Jackets, because it's been a rough stretch for Columbus professional sports.
I know.
I guess we now have to include the Aviators in that as well. At least the black and gold were able to get us what we needed.
Yeah, fair enough. A bright spot out of the bleakness for sure on the Columbus Pro Sports